Thank you for joining us for the July 12th Audit Committee meeting of the New York City Health and Hospitals. Today's meeting is officially called to order. I would like to propose a motion to adopt the minutes of the Audit Committee meeting held on May 10th, 2021. May I have a second?
Second.
Okay. I'm going to poll the members. Eric Way is here for Dr. Rachel Katz. And what's your vote, Eric?
Yes.
Frida Wang? No, she's not voting, that's right. Benioski Benyamora?
Yes.
And I am a yes. Okay, the minutes are adopted. Next, we'll have an audit update from Chris Talano.
Thank you, Sally. Good morning, everyone. We're going to start on page 3 of my report. And this discusses the audit being done by the New York City Controller's Office of the oversight of auxiliaries. The final report of this audit was issued on June 16th, 2021. This audit was a continuation of the Children of Bellevue auxiliary audit conducted by the Controller's Office. The final report of the Children of Bellevue audit was issued on June 23rd, 2020. The entrance conference for this audit was 3 days later, June 23rd. Nope, same date, June 23rd, I apologize. There were 4 total findings and recommendations. Health and Hospitals officials took exception to 2 of the findings noted as part of this audit: the outdated policies and procedures and untimely completed financial statements, as they were previously mentioned on page 5 of the Children of Bellevue final report. Health and Hospitals also disagreed with the other 2 findings, A and D, discussed in the final report regarding executing separate agreements for each of the 22 auxiliaries and expanding the oversight of the auxiliaries. Health and Hospitals officials responded that this was an overreach, as the auxiliaries are independent, not-for-profit corporations. Any questions?
Any of the members have any questions or comments? Okay, we'll move on then.
Moving on to page 5.
Oh, I had a quick question, Chris.
Sure.
What happens now? They gave us an audit, we disagree with portions, what happens? Anything?
The report was issued publicly on their website, and they will come back in probably about 90 days and ask for a status of any action we took. And there's a possibility that in a year or 2, they will do a follow-up.
Thank you. Yes, that is.
Hi, Deborah Brown, Senior Vice President for External and Regulatory. Sally, I do think it is worth noting that we in part disagreed with their recommendations because we had already taken such actions and we're starting to initiate such actions. So I just don't want you to think that this report came and we said, no, we disagree, we're not taking any actions. In fact, part of what we disagreed with were the fact that many of these findings were moot at this point.
Did the controller have the new operating procedure?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, terrific, thank you.
Moving on to page 5, this is also an audit being done by the New York City Controller's Office of controls over nursing homes. Since the last committee meeting, the auditors from the Controller's Office decided to visit each of the 5 nursing homes within the system. Their goal was to observe all of the areas that are utilized by the warehouse staff and obtain and review documents related to the inventory process. This included the fiscal year inventory counts and cycle counts conducted during the last quarter of the fiscal year. In addition, the auditors will be meeting with PeopleSoft inventory expert from the Corporate Supply Chain Department of Health and Hospitals to learn about the processing and reporting functions of the inventory system. The meeting will take place tomorrow on July 13th.
Any questions or comments? Okay,
Moving on to page 6, this is an internal audit conducted of the review of vehicles owned and leased by New York City Health and Hospitals. This audit is a follow-up of a follow-up. The original audit report was issued on May 14th, 2018. The first follow-up report was issued on January 7th, 2020. Because the first follow-up revealed minimal progress, our audit process for the current review was similar to the one practiced during the original audit. Overall, our audit revealed that the monitoring of vehicle usage and fuel and maintenance expenses need to be improved. In addition, we recommended that a more standardized approach to the oversight of the transportation departments at the facilities would help to address the audit observations we found during our review. Our audit consisted of visiting 5 facilities, King County, Lincoln, Jacoby, Queens, and Metropolitan, to physically verify the existence of the vehicles listed in their quarterly reports. We selected these 5 facilities in central office for our audit test work. We noted the following issues. And A, as part of the original audit, we recommended that the Fleet Management Services vendor, ARI, used by central office be rolled out to all the facilities, as it would save costs on maintenance and improve the monitoring of the vehicles throughout the system. Our first follow-up audit revealed minimal improvement regarding this suggestion, and this audit revealed no additional progress. Many facilities continue to travel far distances for mechanical work on their vehicles. Moving on to B, during our review of the gas statements for the first 3 months of calendar year 2021, I have 2020 on that? 2021, we found over 120 instances in which gas was purchased for prices far exceeding the average prices offered throughout New York City. 40 of those purchase prices were for over $4 a gallon, with a high of $5.50 per gallon. Metro Plus drivers incurred half of the over
And then the final wave would include Bellevue, Lincoln, Community Care, and Cole.
But does this implementation of ARI includes the tracking of the vehicles and the monitoring of the use of the vehicles? Because that was one. And the second part, well, it's multi-part. What is your kind of plan for execution and for deployment of this? And will there be exceptions to the vehicles that may not be put the tracker?
So this is the database that tracks the VIN, the expiration date, the utilization. This is not ARI. I don't believe that we've put in place a GPS tracker in the vehicle, if that's what you're asking.
But the city implemented in 2016 that all the city-owned vehicles will have the GPS tracker. I know there was a lot of issues at that time. So we are not doing that.
No, we don't currently have GPS in our central office fleet. The ARI system is a complete management inventory platform that helps us manage from the inventory to maintenance, to cost, registrations, inspections, and a bunch of other utilizations that we could use the system for, including the discrepancies that were found with the gas capacities. As we found out as a result of the audit in some of these facilities, the gas capacity that's registered to some of the gas cards is incorrect. So for us to correct that, we can use the ARI system to do that, and also use portable gas tanks or portable gas containers that we have at a lot of the facilities, properly identify them, get them into ARI, and then track their usage that way. Because we did recognize that there is a hiatus when it comes to the gas capacities.
So in the case as a non-mayoral, we don't have to follow those regulations from the city.
So another recommendation within the financials is that we're leasing vehicles. They're not city-owned vehicles for future utilization of vehicles. And so they would not fall under city-owned. But my understanding is we are not required to have a physical tracker on the vehicle. We do not frankly have a bandwidth to track. And while we work closely with DCAS to use their best practices, DCAS is not overseeing our fleet.
Thank you, that clarifies. The other part is about the gas tank, and particularly, you're saying that these are kind of portable cans that they are, right?
That's what the gas statements that indicate the purchases, it stated that they were for gas can purchases. It states that on the statements.
And my question is, and I know you mentioned the number of transactions, but you didn't mention the amount that these end up to. Are we talking about minuscule amount of money, or we're talking a large amount of money?
I think it varied. I have the list here.
No, but the total, or your audit, you identify these over 100, so we have larger tanks. So we're talking about how much money, or the thousands, tens of thousands?
It's in the tens of thousands. Could be 100,000. I don't have the total here.
Okay.
Hundreds of thousands.
Because
Keep in mind, we only did 3 months review.
so you can imagine if we go to
Right,
the whole
we can
year, we know where it is.
Right.
For gas cards, then maybe that's also an answer that we need to explore as well. But right now, we need to immediately chronicle them manually, electronically, and we need to have an inventory of not only all the vehicles and their capacity accuracies, but the portable containers that are being used. Because a lot of facilities, for example, like Jacoby, which are big college-type campuses, require a lot of utility vehicles, which can't be pulled up into a station. So forklifts, snow plow removing equipment, all of that has portable containers that fill it with fuel. So that will be a start, and I think that once we do that, we can reconcile on a monthly basis, make sure that we stay consistent with the way we're operating, make sure we stay consistent with what we're spending, and then we can hold the appropriate accountability at that.
Has there been any consideration of pre-authorized user for that type of purchase, so that certain individuals are the ones that actually are able to do those purchases? Would that be a consideration?
Well, I certainly like to see it happen at the managerial level. So what's happened in the past in terms of having pre-authorized uses, I can't speak to, but it's certainly an idea to incorporate, absolutely.
Based on these findings.
Yeah,
I'm
so
trying to
basically,
say, like, what would be the actions to ensure that when you do a new audit, these type of issues will not be present?
So we are using city gas cards with a PIN, that the PIN is the individual putting their actual ID in. So we're aware of who is purchasing the gas at the moment that the card is used by putting in your individualized PIN.
But I don't know the mechanics of the card, but I know that in a lot of purchasing, in a certain destination, you cannot use a certain website, you can. Are these blank? Like, for example, this type of purchase, will that be limited to certain number of people? Because now anybody with a PIN can buy them. Is that correct?
So the PIN is a unique identifier to the individual, right? The gas card stays in the card.
I don't understand that.
So to be more specific, in order for, the way we're envisioning it is, once the portable gas containers need to be filled, one, they need to be inventorized and have unique identifiers, right? Whatever serial numbers you want. Authorization should come from the supervisor or the management of that department to go ahead and fill those containers. When we chronicle those containers, there should be a sign off by the person who filled it and by the person that authorized the filling of those containers. Not only should that happen manually, that should happen electronically with the ARI system once that gets rolled out. Now, when it comes to the cards, once you reach your capacity, my understanding, and we're trying to verify this with ECAS, is that there's a certain time limit that the card ceases operation. I believe it's 24 or 36 hours, not quite sure what that is. But you cannot use the card over and over and over again and do multiple vehicles at a time. You can't do it that way. So that is a safety check that they do have in place. We just need to take it a step further because we are in a unique situation in the way we operate.
If I can, then, thank you. We're all done, right, Chris?
Just moving on to page 9 about the
Oh, yeah.
auxiliary audits being done by a CPA firm. One additional report was issued since the last meeting, and we expect additional reports to be issued this week.
Okay, terrific. Thank you so much, Chris. Now we're gonna have a compliance update from Catherine Patsos.
Good morning, everyone. We'll start on page 2 of my report regarding the monitoring of excluded providers. During the period of April 24 through June 23, 2001, there were no workforce members or vendors that were identified on any exclusion list. Similarly, there were no providers that were identified on the Death Master file or the National Plan and Provider Enumeration System screening. Moving on to page 3, regarding the breaches that were reported during since the last audit committee meeting. There were 22 incidents that were entered into our case management system. Of those 22, 6 were found to be violations of our HIPAA privacy and security operating procedures. 8 were not violations of those procedures, and 8 are still under investigation. Of the 6 that were found to be violations of our policies and procedures, 3 were determined to be actual breaches. Those breaches involved a patient obtaining access to an employee's rover, which allowed the patient to view other patients' information, physicians writing and publishing a case report in a medical journal without obtaining the patient's authorization, and an employee leaving her bag on the subway which contained notes that had protected health information on them. In the first incident, the employee who allowed patient access to the rover was initially suspended, but then brought back to work 2 days later pending a hearing. And the second incident, the article was removed from publication, and the physicians involved were counseled and enrolled in HIPAA remedial training, and documentation of the incident is going to be placed in the personnel files. Finally, the employee left her bag in the subway, was counseled and required to complete HIPAA remedial training. Moving on to page 4, regarding letters from the Office for Civil Rights, we received 2 letters between April 24th and June 23rd, 2021. The first letter was received on June 7th and dated June 4th regarding a complaint filed with the OCR that alleged that the complainant's friend's mother, who is employed at Kings County, impermissibly disclosed his protected health information to his friend. The OCR decided to resolve this matter through providing technical assistance, which involves enclosing material with the letter that explained the privacy rule provisions, regarding reasonable safeguards and encouraged that we share this with Kings County staff. The OCR closed the case without any further action. Also, we received a letter on June 9th, 2021, regarding a complaint that the OCR received on March 5th, alleging that that Queens placed the health information of the reporter in her sister's medical record and vice versa, her sister's medical record and medical information in her record. Again, the OCR determined to resolve the matter through technical assistance, and again enclosed material regarding the privacy rule provisions, and encouraged us to share that material with Queens staff, and they closed this case without further action. Although the OCR did close the case, the Office of Corporate Compliance wants to investigate the conduct a little bit further. So because there was insufficient information in the OCR's letter, we sent a letter to the OCR requesting additional information, and we are awaiting a response. Page 5, regarding the compliance reports. During the reporting period, there were 60 compliance reports that were entered into our tracking database. The database utilizes flags of red, yellow, and green to represent the severity of the reports. And during this period, there was 1 red report, 18 yellow reports, and 41 green reports. The red report concerned access of child pornography websites by a social worker on one of our laptops. This was discovered on May 10th, the same laptop, and discovered that someone had access to Google Chrome using their personal credentials and did not log out. That user had bookmarked various child pornography websites. We referred this matter to the New York City Health and Hospitals Office of Inspector General, and as well as Human Resources, and this social worker was terminated. Moving on to page 8, regarding the principles of professional conduct, so POPC, due to the system's change in the gift policy regarding gifts from patients and their family members, the Office of Corporate Compliance has revised the POPC to align with this new policy and to make it more reader-friendly. We provided a draft for the POPC, which also notes the changes that were made to it. The next one is the operating procedure, OP 50-3, is the policy on gift exchange and receipt. This was circulated will be circulated to appropriate departments in July for review and comment. It is in line with the POPC and expands on the gift policy that is set forth in the POPC. Next, on page 9, is the Corporate Compliance and Ethics Program update. We are, the Office of Corporate Compliance is revising this OP 50-1 to comply with the U.S. Department of Justice June 2020 updated guidance on compliance programs, and to reflect our own changes within our compliance program. When we have finished the final draft, it will be distributed to stakeholders for their review and will thereafter be presented to the Audit Committee for its review and comments. Next, the Biomedical Device Governance Committee. This was established to assist in identifying the needs for and the risks associated with biomedical devices, to manage their life cycles, including the identification of their needs, the sourcing, network connectivity and disposition, and to monitor their onboarding process in compliance with OP 250-22. And the governance committee is comprised of representatives from corporate compliance, clinical practices, EITS, security, medical informatics, nursing informatics, supply chain, and biomedical engineering. The first task that we took on was to revise OP 250-22, which has been completed and sent to additional stakeholders. And it will be developing, the committee will also be developing an enterprise-wide process for procuring and tracking medical devices throughout the system. Then moving on to the Records Management Governance Committee. In order to oversee and manage the system's record storage, scanning, and destruction, the Office of Corporate Compliance established a Records Management Governance Committee, and that committee works with stakeholders to develop effective records management program and to support the system in an advisory capacity to identify the risks that are associated with management activities. This committee is comprised of representatives from corporate compliance, EITS, finance, human resources, supply chain, the Office of Legal Affairs, and revenue cycles. We are currently revising our operating procedure 120-19, which governs the corporate records management program. And that just revising it to make it more consumable and searchable as well. It's very large and expansive document that we are looking to minimize and just be more succinct. Moving on to paragraph 25 regarding the HIPAA risk analysis and security assessment. As reported before, we are, in order to comply with HIPAA and HIPAA regulations, we have engaged a third-party vendor, Coalfire, to conduct our HIPAA risk analysis. Moving on to page 11, as an update from our last meeting in May, paragraph 26, in May, Coalfire conducted interviews with personnel from the acute care facilities and did walkthroughs of selected facilities and DNTCs. In June, they conducted interviews of personnel from central office departments. Coalfire is currently drafting reports and workbooks for the acute care facilities that describe the risks that were identified in their review. The final phase will begin in July, and that will cover the Gotham clinics, a review of the Gotham clinics. And that concludes my report. And if anyone has any questions.
I would like to go back to the report of the individual using the laptop. It only says that the person was the inspector general was providing information and the person was terminated, but was there an investigation in terms of if there was any contact with any of the individuals housed in the hotel program, particularly children?
I don't believe so. This was referred to the Office of Inspector General for their investigation. They determined that the additional information was that this individual had prior incidents involving access to child pornography. But as far as I know, this was an isolated incident on this particular laptop. We are not aware of any further dissemination of the information.
I actually not so much concerned. This is an incredible disturbing case, but I'm more concerned with if there was any contact with any child in this hotel program. So I'm more concerned about the risk
Yes.
of children, children.
Right. Not to my knowledge, but I can follow up on that to confirm.
I think it would be good because this is very disturbing.
I think that's an important question. I had just for clarification, which OCR complaints come to corporate compliance?
Sure. Anytime that an individual, typically a patient, will go straight to the OCR to complain about various violations of the HIPAA regulations. It could include things such as what was disclosed here about inappropriate disclosure of their patient information. It could also be an incident regarding whether or not we properly or timely fulfilled patients' requests for their medical records. Any kind of violation of the HIPAA privacy or security rules.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments, folks on the line? Okay, if not, I'm going to call for a motion to convene an executive session to discuss confidential and privileged matters that may be related to anticipated or actual litigation, as well as certain personnel matters. May I have a second? He got tired. Okay, motion's adopted. If the room can be cleared, thank you very much.